to the Rancocas Nature Center. Today we are going to be filming a virtual walk and taking a look at some of the streams and wetlands that are here in the park. Today's hike is going to be led by Maddie. Maddie is one of our campers, or former campers, and she is interested in doing this hike today, so it's something she has suggested. Maddie?
Hello. Today we're going to be looking at streams, ponds, and the wetland creek area of the Rancocas Creek. These areas are some of my favorite places in the park. I've been going to the camp for about 9 years, and it's something that I really enjoy looking at, and I think you guys will enjoy it too. Right now we're at the stream, and one of my favorite things to do at the stream is to sample for macroinvertebrates. Now, macroinvertebrates are really teeny tiny small creatures. You can still see them, but they're pretty small. And they live in the stream. They're usually the larvae, or kind of the babies of dragonflies or mayflies or other different insects. So by sampling, we can see them, and we can test the quality of the water to see if the water is healthy enough for animals to drink. It's important to keep the streams healthy and unpolluted, because if the streams are polluted, then the macroinvertebrates will have nowhere to live. They like to live somewhere in the water that's clean and healthy. So, by sampling in the water, we found a lot of different macroinvertebrates that we can identify. The first one we have here has no shell, 3 pairs of legs, wings, which are leathered. So, we can see by looking at the macroinvertebrate that it's a water strider. You're going to see a lot of them because they kind of skim across the surface. The next one we have here has no shell and 10 legs. So we can see that it might be the scud. And they kind of like to swim on the sides of the banks of the river. So if you scoop up, you can usually see them. The next one we have here has no shells, legs, no wings, and no obvious tails. So we can infer that it might be a dragonfly nymph. And those usually live kind of on the sides too. They live closer to the vegetation, which is where dragonflies lay their eggs. So the last animal, or the last macroinvertebrate we have here, has a shell, and it only has one shell. Now there's a couple different kind of snails that it could be, but if we look at the shell, you can see the spiral is opening on the left. So that means this is a pouch snail. The last thing we have to do before we leave the area is release everything that we caught. It's important that we release them so they can go back to their habitat. So right now we're at the creek, and you can see here we have a bunch of arrowhead plants, and they get their name from the shape of their leaf, which kind of looks like an arrowhead. It's very triangular. And you can hear frogs calling in the background. There's a lot of frogs that live around here. And the main difference between the creek and the stream is that the creek's a lot bigger. So there's a lot larger animals that can live in the creek. And an example of that could be, you can see over there the beaver damage. That means there's beavers living nearby. So there's definitely a lodge somewhere over here. There's a fallen tree, and we think that there's a lodge where the beavers live over there. Right now we're at the dragonfly pond behind the nature center. Now there's a lot of rocks here, but you have to make sure that when you come, don't stand on the rocks because you could fall in. And the middle of the pond is really deep. It's about 8 feet, so you have to be very careful when you're around here. Now this pond has dragonflies, but it also has a lot of frogs. You can identify different types of frogs without seeing them by listening to their frog calls. This type of frog is called a spring peeper. He's really teeny tiny. It's called a spring peeper because they usually come out in the spring. Their frog call is a very high-pitched peep. Next we have the bullfrog. And as you can see in this picture, the bullfrog is really big. Bullfrogs are the biggest frog that we have in New Jersey. They make a very loud noise. Here we have the leopard frog. And the leopard frog sounds more like a woodpecker. So if you hear a sound that kind of sounds like tapping on a tree, that could either be a woodpecker or it could be a leopard frog. And finally, we have the green frog. Green frogs kind of sound like a broken banjo. Similar to the macroinvertebrates in the stream, frogs are wildlife indicators. They indicate water quality, a lot like the macroinvertebrates in the stream. So, if you see frogs in a pond, that usually means the water quality is pretty good and it's healthy enough for them to live there. Today we looked at 3 different water ecosystems: streams, creeks, and ponds. Now it's your turn. With using items that you can find at home, you can create your very own ecosystem. I used some Play-Doh, some sticks, rocks, some toys, and an old Tupperware container to create a stream ecosystem. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you can go to our website and donate to help us out and support us.